Hi guys, welcome back to our video of one of the videos of our AP Psychology course series. I'm lecturer Youlan, and today I'll be talking about statistical analysis in psychology. And this concept, or like the concept inside this subunit will be tested a lot during the FRQ. One question of the FRQ, which may sometimes require you to design an experiment, or like say which research method is the best that can be used, or like what are some good hypotheses, and etc. So this is really key, and the normal distribution and statistics part are really common on multiple choice section as well. So please pay more attention to this section. Okay, so let's begin. So there are two. So first is a type of statistics. Sorry. The first one is descriptive statistics, which involves the use of numerical data to measure and describe the characteristics of groups, and this includes measures of central tendency, such as mean, mode, and median, and variation. We'll be talking about this later in the later slides. And it doesn't really involve making inferences about the population based on sample data. And then we have inferential statistics, which use statistical methods to make inferences about the population based on the data. It allows you to draw a conclusion about the population based on the characteristics of a sample. Specifically, it provides a way to see validity if drawn from the results of the experiments. Therefore, descriptive data, as the name suggests, describe the data, while inferential statistics focus more on the inference part and what it tells us about the data. Okay, summarizing the data. When one has a ton of data, how do they actually gain or like begin to go through all those a lot of things that are kind of messy? Typically, a researcher would construct and interpret a graph with their data, and they will plot their points onto the graph, and they use descriptive statistics to do so. So, oh my god. So the first one is measures of central tendency. I'm sure in math, a lot of you may already have heard of this, which is mean, which is the average of a set of data. So what you do is basically add up all your data, like the numerical values you have, and then divide it by the number of your sample. For example, there are 5 numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you add them up, which is 15, and then divide it by the number, which is 5. So 15 divided by 5 is 3. So the mean of this data set is 3. And then we have median, which is the middle score of a data set that lists the value from least to greatest or greatest to least. It doesn't really matter because the middle one is always the same, right? Okay, and so if we have an odd number of this data set, we just use the middle number as our median. But if there are two numbers, for example, there are 10 values in this data set, we'll use number 5 and number 6, we add them up and then divide it by 2, and the value that's the mean of those two numbers are the mean of this entire data set. Okay, and then we have the mode, which is the most frequently recurring score in the data set. A dataset can have one mode, more than one mode, or no mode. If two scores appear the most frequently, the distribution is bimodal. If 3 or more scores appear most frequently, the distribution is multimodal. Okay, so I'll give you an example of the mode and median question, and please pause the video and think about it. So we have a data set of 5, 10, 5, 7, 12, 15, 18. What is the mode? Pause the video. Okay, so the mode that appears more than others is 5, which occurs twice. So the mode of this data set is 5. Okay, now what's the median of the data? Please pause the video. I will say the numbers again. 5, 10, 5, 7, 12, 15, 18. Since the median is the middle of the dataset when the numbers are in order, from least to greatest or greatest to least, make sure you always put them in order. If you do so here, you'll find that the median is 10. And then we have the measures of variation, which describe how spread out the distribution of data is. And the most frequently used measures of variation is standard deviation, which is a measure of how much the values in the dataset deviate from the mean, which means how far it is toward to the mean. Lower standard deviations indicate that the data or like the values that are relatively close to the mean, whereas high standard deviation value means that the values are more spread out. Another less complex way, so by the way, standard deviation has basically five steps. What you do is you like calculate the mean of this a bunch of data first, and then you use use the initial data point minus the mean of the entire data set's mean, and then you square the difference. And then what you do is that you use the value after the square of the difference. You divide it by n minus 1, which is the number of sample minus 1, and then you take the square root of this value, and that's your standard deviation. AP psychology won't test you on the process of calculating standard deviation. It's more like an understanding. If you're really interested, please check out more videos on statistics for math specifically. Okay. And the less complex measures of variation is range, which is the difference between the highest and lowest values in the dataset. Okay, and now we have the correlation. I bet a lot of you have heard this word before, and it is a statistical measure that describes the strength and direction of the relationship between two variables. It can range from -1 to 1. A value of -1 indicates a strong negative relationship, a value of 1 indicates a strong positive relationship, and the value of 0 indicates no relationship. You can simply think of it as a measure of how well two variables are correlated. As the closer it is to -1 or +1, the stronger the correlation. So there are three types, as I just mentioned: positive, negative, and no correlation. Positive, so this is the illustration. As you can see, as the values on the x-axis increase, the values on the y-axis also increase. So we can say as one variable increases, the other one also increases, and the contrast, or like the opposite to positive correlation, is negative. As you can see, as one variable increases, which is the axis, or like the y, the other one decreases, so the y is descending. And then we have no correlation. It's really simple. Like, there's no connection between the two variables. Like, all those points I just like spread out randomly. There's no like a big correlation between the data sets. So yeah. Okay, for skews, which is a frequency distribution that is a breakdown of how the scores fall into different categories or ranges. There are several types of frequency distributions. The first one is normal distribution, which is the bell-shaped frequency distribution that is symmetrical above the mean, and the mean and the median is simply the point that is the highest. Like if you draw like a dashed line over here, then the mean would be this value, and the median will also be this value. And this is really easy to understand. And normal distribution will be mentioned or discussed more as we enter our next slide, or next, I don't really remember, but next two slides, because we'll talk more about like is distribution and how like standard deviation relate to this normal distribution curve. And then we have positively skewed distribution, which is, as you can see, the tail is over here, and is extending to the right towards the larger values. And since they're and then the data set has unusually large values that pull the mean to the right. Oops, I did a typo here. This is the this graph shows a positively skewed distribution where the mean is greater than the median. Yeah, so mean is here, and the median is here. So the mean is greater than the median. And then we have negatively skewed distribution. As you can see, it's the opposite of the positively one, and the tail is over here. And yeah, I guess it just flipped across the y-axis, and the tail is extending to the left and towards the smaller values. And the data set has a few unusually small values over here that pull the mean to the left. There's another skew that we didn't really mention on the slide, which is a bimodal distribution that is a frequency distribution with two peaks. This occurs when the dataset has two distinct groups of values that occur with different frequencies. It might be really hard to remember which skew and how it's related to the graph that it's correlated with. If the tail on the right is longer, like it is in this slide, then it's a skew to the right. If the tail is a left longer, like this one, then it's a skew to the left. Okay, so here comes our normal distribution, as I just mentioned. 68% is one standard deviation of the mean. So like 68% of all the values falls in between this range. And yeah, if you just look at like the middle line, which is like 50%, those two are like half each. And 95 is you plus this 13.5% to each side, and which means that 95% of values fall between two standard deviation of the mean. Yeah, and the three standard deviation is 99%, but this won't be mentioned too much in the AP Psychology course actual exam. Okay, so here comes the end of our Unit 1 learning, and hope you really enjoy it. Please subscribe and like my video, and we'll be continuing our journey in AP Psychology. And next unit will be focused more on the like biological content of the AP Psychology. So yeah, just stay updated for that. Thank you.